Now,
themselves.
outside of the obvious answer of repetition, how do you
Mhm.
think someone develops the skill set of storytelling?
Well, for me, there's a lot of, so like I said, there is sort of just a natural ability to understand it. That's the very first thing, and realizing that, and realizing, why you relate to stories, and that sort of thing. But beyond that, you need to kind of do a lot of studying and research on how stories are conventionally told. Like, what are the conventions of a movie, for example? There's a
Mm-hmm.
3-act structure. There's an act one where you set up the character, and then there's a moment where a goal appears for the character, whether that's, it's called the inciting incident. It's commonly referred to, where um, you know a, a a goal is presented for the character. Like, the character has to, overcome some obstacle to get what they're
Mm-hmm.
looking for.
Yeah.
Like in Finding Nemo, when Nemo gets taken away, that sets the story in motion, right? And then Marlin has to find him, and that's how that, and then there's, so the second act is just um, a collection of obstacles that the character has to overcome. And then act three is
Resolution.
the resolution, whether it's going to be happy or sad, or maybe, maybe there's a combination of those involved. And so anyway, so that would be kind of that's just an example of
Mhm.
one way to tell a story is 3-act structure. That's commonly done in movies. And but there's a lot of other ways to organize a story. There's a lot
Mhm.
of ways to build, what makes a compelling character. That's a huge thing, because if you don't relate to the character, then people if people don't relate to the character, then they won't be paying attention to your story. And so I've read a lot of books, a lot of analyses, watched a lot of analyses of different stories and stuff like that. Reading not only just books about storytelling, but books about, or just great literature in general, great stories. You know, Ernest Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald, the Bible is I mean, it's kind of funny, but it's actually probably the most significant piece of literature in Western culture. I mean, it's referenced just in so many different movies and pieces of popular culture. It's almost unbelievable how
Mhm.
often biblical references are made without even really necessarily being consciously done. They can be
Mhm.
conscious or subconscious, and you may realize it or not, but that's huge. So
Are there
stuff
any
like that.
resources like specific books or websites or like, YouTubers that
Mhm.
people should check out that you think they could, help get the ball rolling?
Yeah. So one, and do you think in particularly for visual storytelling? I'm assuming, or
Yeah, I mean, this podcast is really, it's, called Reality Benders. It's about highlighting people bending reality towards their will and figuring out, how they do that, right? And I
Mhm.
think, every successful person has developed different traits and skill sets that they can leverage. And one of the biggest skill sets you have is the ability to tell stories, right? And whether that's an entrepreneur starting their own business, whether it's another musician, you know there's different people that can leverage this skill set of storytelling, through branding or marketing or even just selling yourself,
Mhm.
right? Even as something as simple as a job interview, if you can
Sure.
go in there and tell your story properly, like, people are going to connect emotionally with that.
Sure, sure.
So, like,
So
yeah.
probably, well, I'll sort of tackle it through the lens of filmmaking, since that is what I have been primarily focused on as far as storytelling and learning the craft of it. Um, but one book that kind of transcends that is called The Seven Basic Plots by Christopher Booker,
Hmm.
and it's kind of a long read. It's like, I mean, it's like 800 pages or something, 700, 800. But it's a very, very detailed analysis of, this guy breaks down um, stories in the human well, just stories from all sorts of different religions and cultures, and boils it down to 7 basic uh, plots that our brain tends to organize a story into. And there's a lot of analysis of, you know, how stories, why stories are so influential to people and why they've been in human society for you know, thousands and thousands of years. And he uses examples from all different cultures and stuff of the different story archetypes. So that's a really great one to read if you want to get a general understanding of just the importance of storytelling and sort of the 7 basic ways that stories tend to manifest themselves in our mind. Another great one, more particularly for filmmaking, is called Story by Robert McKee. And I found that book just really, really helpful for, you know, if you're aspiring to do screenwriting or really just, you know, even if you're trying to make story oriented commercial videos for yourself or for other companies. There's a lot of great, it's oriented toward the traditional screenplay, like a Hollywood screenplay, but the elements in that book can easily be applied to any story that you're telling or conceiving, particularly in a visual format. So those would be 2 really great places to start. And then as far as YouTube channels, you know, there's sort of there's 2 sides of the coin kind of for visual storytelling. There's actually learning to write your story, to tell your, and then there's learning how to portray that most effectively in the visual medium. And so that would be more like the cinematography. What techniques can you use? How, you know, should you be shooting this on a zoom lens or on a wide angle, or what shutter speed should you use for creative effect? And so for that sort of thing, there's a YouTube channel called Film Riot that is a really, really great resource. They have been on YouTube for like probably 10 years at least, and uploading videos like very consistently. So there's a treasure trove of resources of, they break down techniques and, you know, how people use them and stuff like that. Channel called Every Frame a Painting is a nice one, an analysis channel from, you know, Hollywood movies and how people use different techniques to convey different ideas. So yeah, hopefully that gives people a good starting point. But that's
Hell
kind of
yeah.
that's how I've done it, is just reading lots of books. Also read, if you're aspiring to write screenplays, reading actual screenplays of movies is a really great way to kind of learn that craft as well.